talk to you from a different perspective. I'm going to tell you all the two presentations we had before are based on one assumption, which is a true one, but it's not a universal one, that the management, the top management, usually is doing correctly what they are supposed to do in terms of behavior, in terms of projecting to the future and so on. Sometimes they do not manage resistance, okay, but I'm going to tell you what can be the impact on change when it comes to analyzing their behavior and analyzing the perception of middle managers and employees in general about their behavior, okay? So, a small quiz to start with. So, you all know the change management literature. So, if I ask you, what are the two elements that systematically are present in books, in articles, in speeches, in conferences, when it comes to how to make change management successful, what would you say, spontaneously?
Create a burning platform.
What?
Create a burning platform.
Okay, create a burning platform. Another one?
Be a role model.
Be a role model. Who should be the role model?
Yeah, the guy who wants to have the change.
Okay, the change decision maker, let's say, okay.
Communication, communicate.
Communicate, okay. So, I've been analyzing that, and the two major points are top management commitment to the change initiative and top management exemplarity in behavior. What is common between these two is the role of top management. And this is why I'm going to focus on top management. I'm going to consider that some of you or most of you are in top management positions in your organizations. And what do we really mean when we talk about top management commitment? It's the belief in the change success, all things that you know. To have a strategic mindset. To lead collectively and coherently the organizations towards the change. To translate every constraint into an opportunity to further enhance the change. Okay, that's something we might expect from top management. When it comes to exemplarity, we might expect to apply to themselves the behavior that they expect from the rest of the organization, right? To play a role model, you mentioned that. To convey the values you wish to see alive in the company. But once we have said that, the question is, why is that important? And in fact, ultimately, it's important because what we need in change is to create a climate of trust. So trust will be one of the major issues of my speech. But trust is very difficult to address directly, okay? Because if not because I tell you trust me, that you will trust me, right? You will need something else. And we're going to see what we need to really trust. And again, we are going to see what prevents trust from arising or what violates trust. And then some top managers do it. They are committed and they are exemplary. And some managers and top managers and boards don't do it. Okay, do we agree with that? Yes. But whether you do it or you don't do it, there is now currently a general image of the top management that is being conveyed around and that is creating a collective representation of what top managers in for-profit companies tend to be. And this dominant image is becoming somehow negative. And it is mainly conveyed by the press and conveyed by the satirical cartoonist. And that's very important because even if the press is conveying real, true scandal stories, I have noticed through my research that people in general, independently of the real behavior of their top management, they tend now to believe collectively that top managers behave in a certain way that I'm going to describe right away. Where does this come from? And I think Georg mentioned it. What the image that's conveyed is the cynicism of the powerful. It's the cynical behavior. Okay, so that will be my point during this presentation. Being cynical, behaving cynically, to tell what it means and the effects that it has on change. Where does cynicism start from in terms of behavior that has been analyzed and having terrible consequences on the involvement of people in politics, of course. We talk about the cynicism of politicians, of powerful politics, and the impact on citizenship and citizen commitment. And when we look at the press, okay, I've taken some French and German examples, but we can find examples everywhere. The press very often presents what happens in the political sphere in terms of scandals as being the example of cynical behavior. So you can see it here with the Affaire Buisson in France, which is very recent. We see that in Germany with Frankfurter Allgemeine, Zyniker in Nadelstreifen. This is just to show you how we use the vocabulary in the press. Here we see in Handelsblatt, Grüne werfen Merkel bei Mindestlohn, Zynismus vor. What I mean by that is that the power of the press is tremendous when it comes to creating a representation of the powerful in people's mind, people like you and me, very powerful. And this has been now enlarged to the corporate world. So to the corporate world, you've seen the press for years. This has mainly started in the 2006-2007. It's quite recent. To consider that the top managers and mainly the CEOs behave cynically. Okay, this all started with what? With the stock options, with the unmanaged stock options, with the golden parachutes, with the increasing distance between the lowest salary in a company and the CEO's salary, and so on and so forth. All this has been translated in such a way that very often it's legal. Very often we are in legality. But we see that legal issues, when it comes to change, it's not enough. We need some ethics. And ethics are different from legal. Okay, so let's continue. This is an example with Carlos Ghosn, whoever, but we could find many others. This is an example of a lady who, I took this one because it happens in Berlin, who in a small and medium company in Berlin, how the person describes the cynical behavior of the CEO, which I'm going to describe in a second. And here we have another example, which is very recent, and it talks about Zynismus siegt, and who do we see there? The CEO of Amazon, okay? So again, what I'm mentioning here is that all this is bringing to the collective mind that CEOs are less and less ethical and more cynical. Satirical cartoons, I let you watch this one because it says it all. So you see two CEOs there from the health insurance industry and the bank industry, okay, considering that they are looking at the other guy who's an amateur. Okay, so I want to talk to you about the results of the study I've been conducting beyond my consulting. It all started with my consulting work, but I conducted a research study. I analyzed press articles about the word cynicism for many years. I started the analysis of the press since 2006. And I surveyed 650 middle managers in small, medium, and large corporations, because strangely, I had the hypothesis at the beginning that this only happened in large companies. But in fact, it's not the case. And so I identified what it means to be a cynical CEO or management board. And in fact, when you read the press and when you ask the people and when you start analyzing what's behind, the definition is based on 3 dimensions. When we say Carlos Ghosn is cynical, we mean that he applies what we call duplicity. Duplicity means that I will have a speech towards you, very nice speech, okay. You will be my employees, I will be your CEO, and I'm going to present things in such a way that you will perceive that my speech is just full of lies. And I'm convinced that I can convince you about what I'm telling you, and I'm not really telling you the truth. That's what it means. Arrogance, okay, arrogance. And lack of integrity. Again, something very important here to remember is that not all CEOs or management boards might be like this. But the collective representation of the CEOs and management boards is more and more considered to act like this. Okay, so that is really important. Duplicity meaning the fact that I consider you as stupid. There's something like this behind, okay? Arrogance means that I do not consider that it's useful in any case to listen to your opinion about the change. I know what has to be done and I know what is good. That's what we mean by arrogance, okay? And lack of integrity means lack of integrity, meaning leaving the legal aspect and doing some things, having very opportunistic behavior, okay? Not acting for the collective good of the organization, but only for the private or for my immediate collaborators, let's say, opportunities. That's what it means. It's very important to understand the significance and the definition of cynicism in top management, because cynicism has many understandings, many definitions. And I'm going to show you now how this type of behavior, whether it's true or not, but as long as it is perceived by the employees, will generate another type of cynicism, which is the employee cynicism. Okay? So here we have so what happens? When usually you have a cynical CEO or management board, what happens is that it has an effect and direct impact on trust. It violates trust. It means that if me, employee, see over time that you are going to have, the company is not doing well, you are going to lay off people, but at the same time you are going to have a salary increase. I see that. Lack of integrity. I also see that when you talk to us once a year, you explain us a nice story to justify that. And I see from you that you expect me to believe you. Duplicity. And every time we have been trying to voice the inconsistency of what is happening in the organization, no one listens to us. Arrogance, okay? Then I will consider that I cannot trust you anymore, okay? And this broken trust leads over time to the employees, that's the employee on the right, to develop a cynical employee. Let's look at what a cynical employee is. A cynical employee is someone who will mistrust the organization, is someone who will have a negative belief. It means that every time you are going to propose a change project, these employees that have been suffering from this type of top management behavior will consider that something might not be clear behind this change project, that you are not honest. And so it's better to oppose to it, even if you don't know what's behind, because you have to protect yourself. That's what it means, negativity. And withdrawal. Withdrawal, what does it mean? It means that because of the cost of exiting a company, you don't quit, you stay, but you don't contribute beyond what you have to do to keep your job, even for middle manager positions. Can you imagine the dégâts, we say in French, but the impact into the organizational performance of people withdrawing. Withdrawing means showing silence. What does silence mean? Is I see an opportunity to improve a process, I don't say it, that's not my problem. Okay, that means withdrawing. Withdrawing means being a little bit neglectful. One morning, if I don't come to a meeting, if it was with the former CEO, I would do everything to be in that meeting. With this CEO, no rush. It's not my priority. That's what neglect means, okay? And cynicism is really about criticizing and not believing, okay? And so, if we look at this, that's this definition of our cynical employee. So, what do we see? We see that in my sample, over 50%, 52% of middle managers all over Europe consider that their CEO and their management board is cynical, which is not nothing. 48% consider they are not. They are something else, but not cynical. 52%. And over time, it develops this type of cynical behavior in employees. This leads to, it's the explanation of the reciprocity relationship. It means that top managers sometimes do not understand one thing. But before we go to it, let me read that for you and you will get my point. You said to tell you if marketing wasn't cooperating.
Carolina, you can't come running to me with every little problem. Go fix it.
But then why did you tell me to tell you?
It's just something I say.
I got a job at the Indian company where you outsourced my job. Then I arranged to work from home, which, as you know, is my old cubicle.
Fine. Here's your assignment.
Email it to me. My day starts in 10 hours. So what do we see here? We see our cynical CEO up there, and we see the reaction with a cynical reaction by the employee down there. This is what we call the reciprocity process. It means that top managers, it's very important for all of you guys to understand the type of relationship employees engage with the company. It is a relationship like those they engage with a person. They consider the organization, and the top management is supposed to represent the organization as a person. So they love you, they hate you, they believe you, they trust you, they mistrust you, okay? They see the company and the top management as a person. And top management tend to see the employees from what we call an economical perspective. It's a resource. It's a resource, can be well managed. I don't say they manage people like machines necessarily, but the look to the people is like only a resource, not like a partner, not like a person. Okay, and this is why, as long as top managers do not understand this difference in the vision that they have to each other, any inconsistency in their behavior leading to this cynical behavior will trigger a resistance, more than a resistance, an opposition, because it will trigger employee cynicism. You follow me, guys? And then you might tell me, okay, so once we know what the 3 characteristics of a cynical CEO or management board is, we could do the opposite. We could consider that if we reverse these 3 characteristics, we would have the definition of the virtuous CEO or management board. So employees have in their mind, in that relationship they establish with the organization, that an ideal CEO should be sincere, humble, and have integrity. And show it. It has to be somehow visible. Because remember, the press will continue to convey stories about cynicism. And this is, to me, that looks very interesting if top management and boards take time to understand that, to a certain extent, there is an implicit expectation from employees towards them to see them sincere, humble, and showing integrity. Okay? So, in other words, we could live from a climate of mistrust when either you behave cynically, either you are perceived to behave cynically and you don't care, towards a climate of trust, if that's what you want. I come from the assumption that trust will allow employee involvement, because employee involvement requires belief in the project and believe in the good intention of the project. Believe in the good intention of the project, at least for the organization. Not always for me, or at least I can see myself as a pig until I'm shown that I'm only a chicken. But I need to believe that there's a good intention behind, that you want to do good to the organization. And trust is absolutely critical to that. Okay, this is why there's this strong relationship to it. Because trust allows employee willingness to support the organization change, so the willingness, and trust allows the employee involvement. To conclude, does it mean that top managers have to be perfect? No, but when they remain arrogant, consider that they do not owe anything to the employees, they will be perceived as arrogant. If they still continue to make speeches that are more addressed to the shareholders than to the global stakeholders, employee as being the first stakeholder, they will be considered as doing this duplicity. If they make some decisions about their own security, personal security or the management board security, when they do not tackle the issue of employee security from a remuneration perspective, they will be considered as having lack of integrity, they will be considered as cynical. And you see how easy it is to jump into these behaviors. That's everyday life for top managers. But see what are the consequences. So my point here is top managers, management boards should be much more aware of this mechanism. As long as if they expect employees to play their role and resist in a different way, even if resistance is natural, here we are seeing that resistance, it's the reaction to those who would like the change to happen. Okay? So that would be my conclusion, and I'm done. And vielen Dank, and I'm here open to exchange with you.